So I pulled this arborvitae out of my yard several years back. It may have been almost 5 years now that I pulled that out of the yard. It was part of the hedge that had gone along the patio, and I didn't need some of them there. So I moved some of them, and then I kept two that looked pretty good. This is one of them. This one's the one with a little bit better trunk, and the branch placement was pretty good. So this one I've had just growing really free for the summer. And it grows really, really fluffy. This arborvitae tends to make a very dense, tall shrub. So I wanted something a little different for it, and I was inspired by a recent lightning storm, which is kind of rare for the Pacific Northwest. And the lightning storm had a reported 2,200 lightning strikes in western Washington. And that's just not really heard of very often. When lightning strikes, it can strike trees. And that's why I thought, hey, I'm going to make a lightning strike tree. So this one actually had a lightning strike that I created artificially. It's burnt out. So I used a torch to burn the wood after I had done some carving on it. It's a good start. But what I'd really like to do is get a little bit better burn on it. You can see at these edges of the cambium layer, there's not quite burnt sections. Part of that was because I was just a little concerned that it would heat up the cambium and kill the cambium a little more than I wanted to. So what I'm going to finish off today is I'm going to lighten up the foliage a little bit. I'll probably pull one or two of the branches into slightly different positions. And even though it's a light foliage look down here right now, it will again bush out quite a bit. Now this growth at the top, that's one summer's worth of growth. So it gets really bushy. So I'm going to continue on with that today. It's going to get a new pot next year because this is a very rectangular pot. And I miss out on seeing all the different sides of the tree that I enjoy. So I'm going to go for some sort of different pot look for this. Well, to trim this up, I'm going to be taking scissors mostly. I may be using some concave cutters on some of the thicker sections, but I'll also be pulling in, might pull in this branch just a little bit, and then this top section I'm probably going to move some of these over just a little bit just to fill in some of the gap over here. This back branch, I think this one's really interesting. Can't really see it here. And I call it a back branch because it was behind where I am. As soon as I get this pot situation figured out, it won't really have back branches anymore. But this branch right here, I'm going to move somewhere. I don't know. Not quite sure yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by trimming this little foliage mass out a little bit. And really, I'm just going to lighten it up quite a bit. It'll have a little bit of upward growth, but most of it will actually be outward growth instead. I'm also picking out some of these interior areas. It fills in all these little nooks and crannies with a bunch of little shoots. And where I can, I just kind of dig in there with my fingers and pull those out. If I can't quite get it with my fingers, scissors work pretty well. Also tweezers for some of the tighter sections. So as I work on that, I get a little bit more branch structure view, and I give it this look that is a nice and airy look compared to what it had. Now that will not stay, that's for sure, because this plant tends to get so fluffy. But what it does is it provides me a framework that I can use, and this framework will allow me to keep the tree in shape quite a bit better. And it also is a nice lightness to the tree in general. It'll be really quick to get it back to lightness. Now if I let this go too long, what this does is it makes me do what I'm doing right now, where I have to really take a lot of time to get in here into these little branch areas and lighten the load on those spots. If I don't do this, it tends to get really, really thick. And the branches are thick enough as it is already. There's not a lot of taper from the upper section to the lowers, and because this was an upright shrub that got so dense, most of the areas that are near the trunk don't have foliage because of the The typical dieback tendencies of a shrubby type evergreen will do that. It'll grow nice and beautiful from the outside, but when you take a look inside of it, there's just a ton of dieback. I'm starting to get there a little bit. As I go, it lightens up, and then at some point I end up with a little bit lighter branching. I'm doing this today instead of doing my fence project because I just have a little bit of time in between family activities to do some things, and this is what I've chosen. I had already started on this project, so I'd like to finish it if I can. This is one of the more easy stylings that I've done, and I call it easy because really all I'm doing is just trimming branches. I'm not focused on a detail wiring on this or anything. I don't really feel this one needs a detail wiring. I really do like the looser look that it can have if I just do this trimming. I'm also not really conforming to the super trimmed look. There is a slight bit of a dome that I'm creating here in the foliage, but only a slight bit. There's a little bit of a curve to it, and again, I'm looking straight down from the top of this because I don't really care which side the front is going to be. That's not part of my decision-making process on this right now. Really, what I'm looking for is if I look from multiple sides, will it look cool? And in the placement of it, when I turn the plant this way, when this fills out, I will have, different levels of pads here. There'll be some light that can come through here. Big birds can fly through here. If it was in the real life, maybe porcupines would climb up to it and hang out for the day. Okay, so that branch is done. Moving on to the next one up. On this sort of tall tree, I do work from the bottom up, because I'm pulling branches in towards the trunk, which opens space above it, and I can work on that. This one has nothing above it, but I think I am going to pull this one in just a little bit. I'm not sure where my attachment point is on this, and I don't want to go too close to these other branches. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another attachment point this direction. I have a good place to pull from right here. And if I pull that over, I can get a little bit closer to the burnt section, so it kind of pops that burnt section a little bit more visually. But I don't want to get too close because that would make it look like this burnt section had no impact on this branch. I actually have this dead gem here, which to me indicates that the fire killed that branch. So this branch actually curves quite a bit also. So I'm going to have to get creative on how I pull that. I'm going to have to pull from a little bit further out and go down instead of over. So I'm going to put an attachment point a little bit further down. I got a little spot right here that looks good. I'm going to put a screw into this little spot here. So that little little dead branch, I'm going to put a screw into that. Alright, after rethinking this, I decided to go a little bit different spot. I went a little bit further back from the trunk, and the reason why is that this original spot that I had up here, it's actually really close to the burnout, and inside of that hollow, if I was to do a reburn on that, which I plan on doing this coming year, I would probably find that screw in there if I burnt it deep enough, and that's not what I want to see in a burnt out hollow. So that attachment point is going to allow me to drag the branch down that I want. Branch is this one up here, and I'm going to be pulling the end of it down. So let's see, I think I got to clean that out a little bit first before I can even attach anything to it. Like I said, I haven't trimmed this year, and since I haven't trimmed it this year, and it's gotten really fluffy, this is a little bit more work than I would normally have to do on it. I also don't want it to stay a really refined look. I like it really loose and really wild. So I do have to kind of let it go sometimes. I'm still working on the balance on this tree. It's not really commonly used for bonsai. This is arborvitae or thuya. There are some, like eastern white cedars that do grow in the wild around the States, and people do use them as bonsai. But this one, just don't see very much. I think it's considered a little bit too domesticated. I think it doesn't typically have a wild look. And so of course that makes me take up the challenge and really want to do something cool with it. Because whenever I see that something is not used very much, I want to see why for myself. And you know what, to be honest, this responds really well to bonsai training. Not your typical bonsai, which I like. I don't like doing things that are typical to bonsai. I think I can almost attach over here now. Got to clean enough where I can at least see what the heck I'm doing. I use a pretty thin wire. I've used thin wires for all the guys on this. And I don't like the way that branch really curves that much. So it turns out I'm going to do something that I don't normally like to do with these branches, which is I'm going to wire it quite a bit because I want to straighten this branch back out. Yeah, I'm just going to chuck some thick wire on there. Now this will most likely scar the branch, and I say that because the last time I wrapped wire on this, it grew really fast that time also, and I had wire scarring by the end of the year that was pretty significant. Now it's been a couple of years since I've done that, and the wire scarring is mostly healed, so I feel comfortable that it will heal eventually, but it won't look that great for a while. Good thing is I'm using quite a thicker wire this time. So the wire scarring shouldn't be as deep because this thicker wire tends to not really dig in as much. It's got more surface area. It's more forgiving. Okay, so there's the first wire just for attachment, just for structural purposes. And the second wire I'm going to use to get to the end of the branch and actually for the bending. This is very much, to me, still considered in training. So I don't mind having big old chunks of wire on here, and I'm not really that interested in it being super pretty right now because this tree is definitely a few years from looking like much. Alright, let's see how I can get this twist going. And again, I don't want to get too close to this trunk with this foliage mess. It's close to where I wanted it, but it still comes out a little bit more than I'd like. So I'm going to try to bend this lower section down a little bit more. There we go. I do have a little bit of a break in here, but it's not that bad. It's more of a stretch than a break. It'll be kind of layered here. When I trim this, this will have a couple of different layers coming out of it. That is ready to trim. I did that instead of using a guy wire. I actually used the wire for this. I don't like to wire again, but this one put it in position mostly. It's almost in position. Okay, yeah, I'm going to trim off some of this. Kind of opening it up a little bit. It's a little odd from that side because this goes so far away from everything. It just flows out. That's okay. Well, what I'm left with is this big open space here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this branch probably a little bit back. Yep, I think I'm going to do that because this crown up above it is pretty full. So I mean, I do like how on this side this branch fills in this open gap, but if I pull it back, it still fills it in a little bit. But from the other different sides, I like the look of it a little bit more. The only thing is that puts it a little bit closer to the burnt out section. So I have to be careful with that. I think I'm going to go just a little bit over. But I'm going to... Nope. Never mind. I'm just leaving it where it is. Ay. Sometimes there's tough decisions. If I pull it towards this branch right here, I can still grow it out the other direction and have some foliage over there. I'm doing it. I'm going from here towards that branch. Okay. Easy peasy. Sometimes the decisions just kind of make themselves for me. Good enough. I can make sure all these branches are out of the way and trim away. So now I'm on to the top section. I got this big mass up here that I'm going to work on. I've done most of this exterior area. It's got a nice spread on it. Quite wide around here. Burnt out trunk from one of the sides you can see it the best on is really highlighting on that mass quite a bit. This top section, the way I'm going to treat this, I'm going to probably wind up cutting off some of the thickness from it. But we'll see. I'm going to start by lightening that up and then see where I need to go from that. I think it's actually in a good position, other than I might have to pull down a couple of these branches. Nope. I'm just going to leave those light and airy. Nice big negative space here. You're looking from here, this will open up a huge negative space. I like that. Okay, going for it. Except I need to get this a little lower probably, or me up higher. Yeah, I'll just reach. So I've lightened up the look on this quite a bit. It looks a little bit less like a fluffy shrub now. It will fill back out, and I will continue to shape the foliage just a little bit more. But I do like that open and airy and kind of wild look on this. I don't really have a reference for what this tree is supposed to look like, but it's just one of those old looking trees. Hope you enjoyed the video on these two arborvitaes that have been burnt out by lightning. I got more work to do on them, that's for sure, but it's been a fun go, and technically they're free. They just cost me the price of the house since they came with it. So I'll continue working on these and use my imagination on them. If you want to see some more updates in the future on these, hit that subscribe button down below, and even maybe the notification bell if you want to see them right when I upload them on Fridays. Thank you for watching.